Hello, everybody. Today, we are very happy to have with us Munmun Ganeriwal. She is one of the most established nutritionists we have in the country. And today, she's going to decode for us lots of facts and myths about diet and nutrition. So, Munmun is the founder of Yuktahar, which is India's only professional to have, she's the only professional to have acquired a master's degree in nutrition science, international certification of health fitness instructor, and a yoga diploma all at the same time. That's quite an achievement, Munmun. She is a frequent contributor of diet and fitness tips and articles to leading magazines, websites, both in India and abroad. She's an advocate of holistic lifestyles, and today she will decode for us nutritional facts and myths and food immunity, lifestyle, and weight loss in times of COVID. So tell us, Munmun, let's start with how do you think clients' expectations have changed during COVID?
Thank you for having me here, Parinita, and thank you for the lovely introduction. So, a lot of perspective has therefore definitely changed in times of COVID. Initially, a lot was, as we all know, was all about losing weight and attaining a certain size, and
Right.
Getting into that little black dress or having some kind of that perception of a good body that was there. So that I think has changed in the sense that during this entire lockdown period when we were just trying to get used to the new normal. Our office received a lot of calls wherein people were really very anxious and eager to improve their health. So for once we saw that the norm, which was always about getting into a certain size and looking in a certain way, that changed to somewhere that people wanted to improve their health. They were talking more about immunity, and they wanted to take care of overall general well-being took a much higher priority than just the aesthetics or the body size. So that is one thing that is very very that is something that we really saw happening, and that is something that I saw was a very good trend.
Okay, so tell us, like you said, immunity, and immunity has been a buzzword throughout the whole of last year.
Yeah.
What do you think what are myths about immunity and what are facts about immunity?
Yeah, I mean, see, I've just last month, Google India, they came up with their, year in search list where they take the latest buzzwords that happened throughout the year. They take out the top trend searches that netizens in India have been looking at, and they have been the most searched question, so to speak, on Google. And there's no surprise there that the most obvious thing was how to boost immunity. So immunity boosting had become the most searched topic on Google, quite surprisingly, because since all the decades we only had weight loss in mind. So that was quite a thing to see. So again, when I really feel that the pandemic has taught us a lot of lessons. If I have to quote about the Director General of WHO, the WHO chief, who is Tedros Ghebreyesus, he said that this COVID-19 might not be the last pandemic that the planet is witnessing. Absolutely. And until and unless we change, and unless we take our lessons, we learn from our mistakes, we might not, this still might happen again with some other virus coming in. So instead of this, this is a fact that if we don't learn from what we have witnessed, we are going to see that again. And the most important lesson that we can learn from the pandemic is to exercise moderation, is to exercise balance. And that is what immunity is all about. We often, like, just to give you an example, just last year when there was all this happening, and even now, Indians got into this thing of having a lot of kadhas.
Yes, exactly.
These herbal drinks and all the kitchen ingredients, so cinnamon and black pepper and all of these things. And then there was this article in one of the newspapers that said that Indians are having a lot of this because to boost immunity. And what is on the contrary having is that people are having an overdose of it. Absolutely. They're not realizing that there is a limit to things. They are not realizing that it is not the same for everybody. And what is on the contrary is being seen is that people are having liver toxicity, and they are having ulcers, and they are having cramps in the stomach. So all of the overdose of pepper and cinnamon is leading to that, because To rely on herbal food is great. I'm quite an advocate of that myself. But there's a limit to it. Cinnamon is, for example, had only 1 or 2 pinch of it. Just don't go on having cinnamon all throughout the day. So that is when things backfire. So even though the pandemic is really coming hard on us and telling us that, hey, just think about moderation, just learn to balance life, we are still, getting into that same vicious cycle where we are still overdoing things, where we are still not ready to learn from our mistakes. So that is one takeaway I think everybody should learn to do in life, is to have a more balanced outlook towards life. One thing there in the health industry is that, if something is good, more is better.
Right. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if cinnamon is good, more of cinnamon has to be better. If kadha is good, more of that has to be better. So we need to get over that fact. If you look at any of the trends like a veganism or intermittent fasting, it's all about that. We overdo things. We feel that, if intermittent fasting, or if say fasting is better, so let's overdo it. Let's do it like every alternate day, or let's do it twice in a week. So that is something that we need to quite closely look at.
Yeah, so you're right. Actually, I would say also, because when the pandemic started, me and my entire family had kala every day. And then we realized that like thoda sa overdose ho raha hai, So you're right. Moderation is the key. Balance is the key. I mean, even something healthy, too much of salad is also bad. So everything has to be done in moderation. Secondly, the other thing you said was very interesting, is that it's not as if one size fits all. Everybody's body composition is different, and everybody's needs are different. So you should have whatever you have based on your body's needs and your requirements. That's very valuable for for our viewers. But tell us, if you had to build immunity, what is the best way to build an immune system? I know I'm asking you for a generic thing, but if it was a generic thing that everybody should follow, what is the best way that you make your system immune?
Okay, so there is something called the gut microbiome.
Right.
So the gut microbiome has recently emerged in the last 10 years. It has emerged as the most important frontier when it comes to not only strengthening your immunity, but also when it comes to, losing weight, when it comes to even taking care of your mood disorders, your behavior patterns, when it comes to even the food preferences that we are making. So in a sense, if we feel that, sugar craving hai and mujhe ye khane ka man karta hai and I lack willpower, but in a sense, it might be the microbes in your gut which are actually asking you to go for that donut. So it's really that, interesting and intricate. When it comes to immunity,
so you're saying that if your body is asking for a donut, eat it.
No, what I'm saying is
I like that. I wish you were saying that.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that so this gut microbiome is actually, for the viewers, I'll just clarify that it's like this trillions of microbes that are living inside us.
Right.
So this microscopic community which is there inside our belly, so these certain specific strains of microbes that are residing inside us, they actually have a say in the food preferences that we are making. Okay. So if we have a certain strain of obnoxious bacteria, they most probably will ask us and make us crave and go for a chocolate or a candy. Okay. What we do is curse ourselves that, I lack the willpower and, all of those things. But it might be actually the belly-based community inside of us that is asking us to do that. Now, again, I'm not telling ki chalo, put it on the microbes that is inside us and we can be free. It's actually in our hands to change that microscopic community inside of us. We can change the kind of strains that are living inside us. We can create a more diverse and healthy community inside of us. So whenever we talk about immunity, that, what are the basic things that we can do to enhance or to improve the immunity, I always tell my clients that, look after your gut. The things that you can do for a healthy microbiome are exactly the same things that will help you lose weight and also strengthen your immunity at the same time. Okay. If you see, even in the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the people who went through a lot of negative consequences were people who were obese.
Okay.
People
Yes.
who were obese were the ones who were at a higher risk of getting the infection and also not recovering from it very fast. Also, the people who were actually going through a lot of chronic diseases from before, they were at a
Right.
higher risk. In both the cases, whether it's obesity or people who are already going through chronic diseases, whether it's diabetes or blood pressure, in both the things, the common factor is the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is already in a bad shape in an obese person and also in a person who is going through any kind of chronic metabolic disease.
Right.
And because the gut microbiome isn't in a very good shape, that's the reason that the immunity is also not working in their favor. So if you look at it, everything is interconnected. So you don't have to do something very drastic to build up your immunity. If you just keep your weight in check, if you live a good lifestyle where you don't are where you are not prone to all these metabolic diseases, that's exactly the same thing that you would do to build the immunity. Just to give you an example, we are going through a lot of these fad diets that whether it's a keto or whether it's a intermittent fasting or whether it's a veganism. But if we really closely look at any of these diets, we will realize that all of these diets ultimately are not good for the microbes that are living inside us. So what we really need to do is build up again a more balanced lifestyle, where more than any kind of diet, quality is supreme. The quality of the food that we are eating, that is something that should be of prime importance, not following a certain diet per se. For example, like during the lockdown, we had this whole fun challenge, everybody doing at home, the making of Dalgona coffee.
Yes,
that was something
exactly.
that everybody was doing, and they were putting up these Instagrammable coffee and everything on the Instagram, and it was trending. Now, Dalgona coffee is made by using instant coffee. Instant coffee is something which is used is made using a lot of low quality coffee beans. It's a preserved and packaged preserved form of coffee. It's unlike the fresh ground coffee that you get when you just roast the coffee beans and you grind them into a powder. It's not that. So instant coffee is what I called a fine example of a Nova ultra processed food. Now, these Nova ultra processed food is the kind of food that you should avoid if you want to build a good microbiome, if you want to build up a good, healthy immune system. But that's exactly what we were doing all throughout the lockdown. So, on one hand, we are talking about immunity, and in the same breath, we are advocating or consuming foods which will actually just do the opposite. So one thing if we can do, which is applicable to everybody, irrespective of their personal constitution and irrespective of their personal health, is that look out for foods with higher quality, which means that minimally processed foods that are fresh, not gone through a lot of processing in any kind of industry. Factory produced food is the food that you should avoid.
Okay, so all the processed foods that we are all consuming, and actually during COVID, it was strange. On one hand, we were having Kala, on the other hand, we were having Maggie and Dalgona coffee and everything, that was. So I don't know what we were balancing really. So give me some misconceptions about certain foods. There are certain foods that, what do you think are misconceptions about foods?
Misconceptions about foods, I would say dairy is something which is quite a controversial food now.
Exactly, yeah.
So dairy, I think, has become, wheat has become, everybody's suddenly, the entire planet seems to be sensitive to gluten and dairy. So
which is actually strange, because our grandparents had it all their life and they didn't even know what is the meaning of lactose intolerant or gluten intolerant. So tell me, break this myth for us.
So see, honestly, if your gut is healthy, you'll digest everything.
Right.
If like I'm a student of yoga, so anybody who studies yoga knows that there's this asana called Mayur asana. Mayur is the Hindi word for peacock.
Right.
And the asana is actually said that that asana can really do a lot to your digestion strength. So you can really build up a great digestive strength if you do that asana. So why do you think it's named as Mayur asana? It's because peacocks are known to eat anything. Like they can even digest a snake, which is supposed to be the most toxic thing. So, this is a fact that which even modern science now has come to believe, that if your digestion is great, you can really digest everything. it's your metabolism, your digestion, that that is the deciding factor. So all these things about gluten or lactose ultimately comes to a good digestion. So of course,
Right.
there's a whole way in which we work with people who are really sensitive to gluten and dairy, where we repair their gut, where we repair their microbiome, and then introduce them to gluten and lactose, and then see and actually they then start digesting it well. So
Right.
that's a different thing. But mostly, most of the time, even people who are not really sensitive to it feel that feel that they are sensitive to it when they're actually not. So that itself, there's an ambiguity there, that whether they are really sensitive or not. So I think an expert has to first diagnose and make the client understand it, if they're really sensitive to that or not. So that is one part. If they are, then of course the digestion has to be strengthened so that the person can start eating them. What is definitely true is that just living a life which is devoid of everything is not the way. That is
Right.
not the way. Ultimately, a person should be eating everything. So
Hmm.
if you are if you are living without certain foods, whether it's dairy, gluten, or something else, and you feel that this is the right way to go about with life, then no, it's not. Ultimately, you have to be on a diet, and you have to work on your health in such a fashion that ultimately you are digesting and eating everything. So that is there. The other concern is also, which is again due to environmental issues. People feel
Right.
that veganism is the way. A lot has also been spoken during COVID-19, because animal welfare and all those topics also came into limelight. So those issues are also there, where people feel that veganism is the way. So my job is not to convert people into certain
Right.
thing. My job is not to convert a non-vegetarian into a vegetarian or vice versa. But my job is definitely to give the right information to the people.
Right.
And when it comes to environmental issues, then what people need to understand is there again has to be a balance. Just to adopt a militant veganism is not the answer. Like for example, people who are not wanting to have ghee. Now, ghee is great because it's anti-inflammatory. It helps to even strengthen your immunity. So it's great. It's put in all the karhas and everything. But there are certain people who feel that there are issues with animal welfare, and we need to save cows, and the kind of things are there. So of course, industrial dairy production has to be, it needs to be put an end to. We cannot go on, harming the animals and having the dairy products. That is for sure. But having said that, what is really happening is that when people are going away dairy products, what they are really bringing into their diet is avocados. So instead of ghee, they have the avocados. Now these avocados, I don't know if a lot of people know, but most of the parts of the country, in our country, in India, we don't grow avocados. So most of the
Absolutely. Yeah.
avocados, they come from either Mexico or they come from Chile. So these are the places where they are grown in abundance. Now, what is happening over there is that avocados are called the blood diamonds of Mexico, for the reason that there are drug cartels in Mexico. And these drug cartels are controlling that avocado trade. And the farmers are actually paying extortion money to them. So I don't see the logic where we are trying to, where we're trying to save one species, but in our enthusiasm to save one species or the animals, we are inflicting hardships upon another community or another set of people. So that is where we need to understand. We need to choose our battles and pick wisely, because a lot of things are happening. Like for example, when we say no to ban meat and ban non-vegetarian food, we need to understand that livestock is an important economic security for farmers in India. They don't only provide milk for them, but they also provide manure and fertilizers and a lot of these natural stuff for the farmers. So if you say no to non-vegetarian food, you are actually taking away a potential source of income from the farmers. So these are things that we need to look at in totality and then decide. My advice to my clients is always this, that if you really are a person who like to eat meat and are non-vegetarian by birth and by choice both, then you continue eating it. But again, there has to be a balance. Like for example, I was just speaking to Tapsi yesterday. She's my client. So she was telling me that when they were kids, they used to just have non-vegetarian food. Like she's a Punjabi, so of course they have the,
Yeah, of course.
non-vegetarian food. So they used to have it only once a week. But then again, when this high protein diet became a trend and subconsciously we started having it every day, we ourselves didn't realize that when this once a week became to 5 days a week or 6 days a week. So that is where we are going wrong. Again, the balance in moderation and consumption has to be there more than adopting a militant veganism theory that everybody should ban meat and everybody should ban dairy. A moderation has to be exercised where we are only consuming non-vegetarian food once or max twice in a week.
Yeah. So we have to have, basically what you're saying is that your weekly plates have to have a balance of food. And this is an interesting thing you said about avocado, because I know everybody seems to be running behind avocado on toast, seems to be the dish for most people. And what you're saying is that you should have local food. What is grown in your country is what is good for you, because that's what worked with our grandparents. Also, like you said, gut health. It seems to be the answer to everything, whether it's your hair, your skin, your weight,
most certainly,
everything. So what do we do for that perfect gut?
A lot of things actually can be done and should be done for gut health. Like I said, the right quality of food should be the first priority. Let me tell everyone that diet is the most dominant factor that can help shape and modulate the gut microbiome. So there are many factors that actually work at it. So right from exercise to your stress levels to how you're sleeping to even what kind of cosmetics you're putting on your body, even that influences the skin microbiome, which in turn will influence the gut microbiome. So it's quite an interesting and complex thing. But if we look at all the factors, then of all the factors, diet has the most dominant role. What you eat can change the microbes that is living inside you, and that can affect and influence your physical health as well as mental health. So the first thing is definitely it's about quality, having the best quality of food, which I am not saying that it has to be expensive food bought from some supermarket. All I'm saying is that it has to be food which is grown in a farm. It has to be minimally processed. Don't go for factory produced foods. For example, if it comes to a breakfast, don't go for a cereal like these cornflakes and stuff, but you can go for something like an idli, which is unprocessed, minimally processed foods. So these are the small switches that we need to make. Of course, people understand that chips and Coca-Cola is processed, so I'm not going to talk about it. We know about all that, but there's things that we don't know about. We feel that they are healthy, but actually they are not. Like a bread which is labeled as gluten-free. Okay. So a bread which is labeled as gluten-free is not a healthy food. So a bread which is labeled as gluten-free mostly has these corn starch. It will have a tapioca starch and a corn starch. So it has potato starch. So these are the starches that is filled in the gluten-free bread so that they can deliver the same kind of texture and taste. And that exactly makes that bread processed. So in our minds, we think that, we are eating healthy because it's a gluten-free bread. But actually, in reality, we are eating an ultra-processed food.
Right.
So these are things. The same goes for an Tetra Pak almond milk. Like the moment we switch to being a vegan or we don't want to have dairy and we'll go for a nut milk because that is what is trending, but we go for this Tetra Pak almond milk or any kind of nut milk, which is a Tetra packaged, even that is a very good example of a processed food because they have these additives which are used as thickeners so that these milks, they can thicken up. So a lot of these emulsifiers and thickeners are used. So we need to be more mindful of what we are putting in terms of the quality of food that we eat. The second thing is we need to be mindful about the timings, about the timings that we are following. So even if you're having that avocado on toast or any kind of food which is supposedly very healthy, which sounds very healthy, but if you're having it say 10:30 in the night, it's not going to do any good to us. So there's something called as a circadian rhythm. So a circadian rhythm is actually aligning your diet, your food timings to the sun. So I always tell my clients that, you eat with the sun and you stop eating when the sun sets. So you basically just, eat when the sun rises and you stop eating when the sun sets. So this is something that I feel it's very simplistic to do. And this is actually, what also affects the gut microbiota in a positive way, because the gut microbiota also has a circadian rhythm on its own. So these two things, if we can be mindful of, having a watch on the quality of food that we eat and having them at the right timings, then that itself can bring a lot of good health and positivity to us.
So tell me, if you follow this intermittent fasting, or you don't eat after the sun sets, and if you feel hungry, what is the one thing that you can eat? Or you say that bilkul no, just don't eat. But if you're really hungry, what should you eat? Nuts,
Yeah,
apple,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, so that is a good question. And I will say that the straightforward answer for that is that, if you are sleeping, you won't be hungry. So when I
Right.
say that, the sun sets, it's around like 7ish. Most of my clients have their dinner at around 7 p.m. 6:37 is what is
Right.
their last meal. And if you're actually retiring to bed by 10:30, sleeping off by 11 last, you won't feel hungry between that 7 to 11.
Yeah.
So again, it's all about everything that is being interconnected. You cannot consider diet to be different from sleep, and sleep to be different from the microbiome. It's all interconnected to having a good lifestyle. So most days of the week, we should aim to get on the bed to sleep early, because when we sleep early, we also close our kitchens early. And
Right.
this whole thing of eating according to the sun, it becomes a reality. The only time we are struggling with it is when we are staying awake, when we are not sleeping till 12 until 1, and then we want to raid into the fridge, and then we try to look into something, because then we get hungry. So staying committed to the diet requires that you also stay committed to your sleep pattern. Having said that, if after dinner somebody really is wanting to eat something, firstly, yes, you have to wind up your day and you have to retire to bed early. But having said that, if you really do want, then any kind of herbal tea, or a cup of milk, a cup of milk, a cup of herbal tea, like maybe a chamomile tea, or a milk with a pinch of nutmeg powder, because nutmeg powder, jaifal, which we say in Hindi, it's very good to induce good sleep. So it can work both ways. It can make a person feel little nice on the tummy, like feeling little fuller, and also will help induce good sleep.
What about haldi doodh? That's
Yes.
also
Yes.
the trending word these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So yeah, haldi doodh works very good. Haldi doodh is great too. So even in the haldi doodh, you can put a pinch of jaifal, a pinch of nutmeg.
okay. So sleep, like you said, is a very crucial part for your health. And during this
Right.
time, people have faced a whole lot of issues related to sleep. Tell us some easy ways in which people can handle their sleep issues.
So basically, people who are not who want to sleep but are not getting sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who want to sleep, but they're not able to sleep because of stress, tension, so many things. COVID has actually taken away a lot of people's sleep. So what should they do so that they get a good night's sleep?
Yeah, the first and foremost thing is that they have to shut their gadgets. We are almost, every minute and every hour, we are addicted to Instagram, and we are addicted to social media, and we are addicted
Very
to
true.
everything. We are facing this FOMO, the fear of missing out, where we don't want to miss out anything, and every news has to come to us first. So we have to get rid of that habit. If there's a person who is really struggling to sleep, then the person has to really switch it off, post sunset. Otherwise, an hour prior curfew is enough. But if a person is really struggling with it, then I really advise that the person should stay away from it post sunset. A lot of other things can be done, like firstly, if the person is having too much tea and coffee in the evening, that also ultimately leads to the fact that the person struggles to sleep later in the night. So that is again another thing. The third thing which I really recommend a lot is left nostril breathing. Now this is a pranayam.
Okay.
It's called a left nostril breathing, and it's pretty simple to do. You just lie down on your bed, and while lying down on your bed, you just do this pranayam when you're ready to sleep, and you just do 5 rounds or 10 rounds. Of course, when a person
breathe in from the left and breathe out from the right.
Yeah. So basically, the person will shut the right nostril like this, and the person, while has shut the right nostril, the person will only breathe from the left. So the inhalations, when the person is taking from the left nostril, it has to be deep inhalations.
Right.
Slow and deep. So the inhalations in pranayama are always slow and deep inhalations, and the person can count. So maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4. and then exhale from the left nostril itself while keeping the right closed. The same way the person has to exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4 floor, maintain the same the slowness in exhaling. So this is one round. So in that way, a person can do 5 rounds, 10 rounds, depends on the person, because when you're starting it anew, it's difficult to do more than 5 rounds in the beginning. But then slowly you can build it up to 7 rounds, 10 rounds. So this is something that really helps because it relaxes the nerves. It relaxes. So that we have in yoga, it's called the Ida and Pingala, which is 2 sides of the brain. So it helps, balance and relax and calm the one which gets really stressed and anxious and doesn't allow us to sleep. So this is something that really is helpful.
Okay, one last question. Tell us, fact or fiction? The fact that we Indians have eaten on the road, eaten golgappas and eaten everything has actually contributed to our immunity. Is that fact or fiction?
I don't think I'll be able to comment on that, because a lot of research says yes, a lot of research says no. So it's kind of it's an ambiguity right now. The fact is there is something, I'm sorry, I'm not able to give a fact or fiction answer.
That's fine. Okay.
But there is something which is called as hygiene hypothesis. So this is a fact that the more over hygienic environment we develop around us, the weaker the immune system gets.
Okay.
So this is a fact that in foreign countries and Western countries, we have kids with autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune disease is nothing but basically your own immune system targeting you, your own immune system getting into a hyper mode where it is attacking your own cells. So in Western countries, we see, now that in India also we see, but we see more that in Western countries, kids with allergies, kids with autoimmune diseases, it's because they are always kept in a very hyper hygienic and sterile environment where they are not allowed to play in the mud and be on the sand or play with the pets, or there's not a lot of socialization in terms of big joint families. So all of this actually contributes to a rich heritage of microbes inside us, because everything we touch is actually becoming a part of a collection, the microbes collection, it's becoming a part. So of course, this is a fact that overly hygienic environment and having a lot of hygiene rules where you are constantly rubbing yourself and stuff isn't very good for the immune system. But to say that Indians have had a great immunity because of the street food and because of these, factually, there's not much of research which says yes. At the same time, so it's a mixed research point of view, there's a mixed opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because you can't be totally unhygienic, and like you said, you shouldn't be. So again, we come back to the same thing that you said, balance.
Yes.
Okay. So Munmun, we're going to ask you one last question, which is that what is your, how do you maintain your health and immunity? What is your personal wellness mantra, or how you keep yourself fit?
So my personal mantra is very simple. I got into this thing. I was studying to be an engineer, and I just got pulled towards this profession because I found a passion in it. So the first time I entered a gym, I was all for 17 years old, and I'm 38 now. And it's been these years that I have been exercising. So I've never had a goal in my mind. Even as a young girl, when I was all for 17, I never had a goal in mind that, I want a certain body. I want to be of a certain size. I want to be of a certain weight. I only exercise just for the joy of exercising. I exercise because I have certain goals in exercise. So if I take up yoga, I would want to have a goal as an asana that, I want to get into the scorpion pose someday. So that's my goal. But my goal has never been to reach a certain size. So I think I was very happy with the way I was in terms of my body aesthetics. And I didn't care much if anyone didn't agree with me. So I think I've always eaten to stay healthy, and I've always eaten so that I can exercise. I've not exercised as a punishment to what I eat.
Right.
I have exercised to celebrate and see what all my body can do. So that is something that really keeps me going, because when you have a body size goal, you attain that goal and then you are, finished, you're done. So there's no motivation to go any further. And that is when that yo-yoing happens. So for me, just living this life is like, of eating right, of exercising, of sleeping on time. Of course, I have my ups and downs. Things happen in personal life, and there are certain
Absolutely.
emotional issues that bother, and things go haywire. But I think I have, because of this lifestyle, I have also developed a lot of mental resilience. So my resilience, helps me get back, and I again get back to my same routine. So this is like what I do, like very simple, just eating normal ghar ka khana, and not eating much outside. Even if I travel, I try to eat healthy food, like which I don't mean healthy in the sense of soup and salads, but what I
Yeah.
just mean is staying away from packaged processed foods,
Right.
and exercising, sleeping on time, and yoga and pranayam is something that I really feel has added a lot of value to my physical health and mental health.
Okay, that's really great, and thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope we're able to do this physically soon. But till then, I
Yes.
guess we'll have to manage with just screen time. And for our viewers, if you have any questions for Munmun, please feel free to send them to us, and we'll try our best to get Munmun to answer them. And bye, Munmun. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Parinita.